to the Holistic High Achiever podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlin Rowitz. This podcast is all about thriving in the modern world without sacrificing your health. It's for all of my fellow high achievers, business owners, mompreneurs, single parents, and hustlers, the people who do so much for everyone else and sometimes at a detriment to their own health. The people who want to do it all but need to find a better way without burning themselves out or continuing to put their own health on the back burner. Yes, we'll talk about health, we'll talk about nutrition and movement and easy solutions to living healthier, but we'll also cover topics like goal setting, building habits, and overcoming challenges and limiting beliefs, which can be applied to any area, including health, so that you can thrive holistically. Hello, fellow high achievers. I hope your week is off to a great start, accomplishing lots of things without feeling overwhelmed. Today, we're going to talk about how much protein you actually need. This is probably one of the most common questions I get as a health coach. There's so many conflicting recommendations from all sorts of experts and reputable sources. According to the CDC, women need a minimum of 46 grams and men need 56 grams to maintain nutritional needs. According to the National Institutes of Health, the average person with minimal physical activity needs 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, or 1.3 gram per kilograms for moderately active people. And for intense levels of physical activity, people need 1.6 grams per kilogram. I'll break that down because I just threw a lot of numbers at you. That basically means if you weigh 150 pounds, depending on your activity level, the range could be anywhere from 57 grams to 108 grams. And then Cleveland Health says protein should make up about 25% of your daily calories. So that means if you're eating 2,000 calories, that's 125 grams of protein. So we have this huge range all the way from 46 grams to 125 grams of protein per day. And physical activity isn't the only factor that could change the amount needed. Age, weight loss goals, existing muscle mass are all things that can change the recommendation. No wonder people are confused and overwhelmed with all of this info. It's like overwhelming information, and also it's like it gives you an answer but then doesn't, because you still end up with this huge range, which leaves me and a lot of people I've worked with feeling even more confused than before you knew that information. So, and also keep in mind, even if you do figure out the exact calculation of what's recommended for your weight and activity level, it's still just an estimate. There is not an exact way to measure this. I will repeat, there is not an exact way to measure this with numbers alone. It's intended to give you a closer estimation, but it's still an estimation. It's like the whole steps thing. The average person needs 10,000 steps. Well, where do you pull that number from, right? And how do you know it's not 7,948, right? It's an estimation. So the one thing all the sources agree on is that we do all need protein. So protein is essential. And it's not just for bodybuilders and athletes. It plays a crucial role in maintaining our muscles for daily functioning in life and preventing injuries. Not to mention, it tends to sustain you longer between meals. And if you listen to my last podcast about the importance of incorporating protein at breakfast, there's a reason I'm kind of doing these back to back. And then on top of the protein intake recommendations, there's all these different diets and ways of eating recommendations that claim to be the best. Keto, Whole30, Paleo, Mediterranean diet, vegan, and the list just goes on and on. With my clients, as I mentioned in the last episode as well, we do this little experiment to find out what the right amount of protein is for them, as well as the types of protein. So I'll do a quick recap of protein sources. This is all Googleable information, but I want to give you an idea. So meats are like the most common people think of, like chicken, beef, turkey, pork. Fish is another common animal protein. Salmon, cod, tuna, tilapia. I can't possibly name all the fishies. There's then cheese, eggs, and with meat and animal proteins and even cheese, depending on the type you're eating, they have different protein contents. Like, for example, 4 ounces of chicken has 31 grams of protein, but 4 ounces of beef has 29. So, looking at that stuff too. But there are also a lot of grains that have higher protein contents, as well as other nutrients. And so they tend to be just more nutrient dense overall than things like white rice and pasta. So it's a great, adding in more, I call them complex grains, is a great way to add more protein if you don't want to add more meat. So brown rice and wild rice, rolled oats, farro, quinoa, buckwheat, spelt, amaranth. And don't feel bad if you don't know what some of those are. I did not know what spelt was. There was another one on the list that I just decided to not put on here when I was Googling different grains, because I can think of the main ones I eat off the top of my head, but there's obviously tons and tons more. So I'll get to this at the end, but I'll kind of skip ahead and be like, part of life and getting in more protein and trying new things is just trying new things. You don't know if you don't like something until you have it. You also don't know if you don't like something until you've had it prepared properly. Like when people tell me I don't love whatever, insert any food, I'm like, no, you just probably haven't had it prepared. Like, especially when it's a whole group of food. When people tell me like, I don't like vegetables. Well, like literally none, any way they're prepared. Because take onions, for example. I have many friends who are like, I can't stand onions. Well, raw onions that people put on salads and stuff like that taste very, very, very different than grilled onions or sauteed onions or boiled onions. Same thing with garlic. Have you ever, raw garlic is super potent. Sauteed garlic is delicious. But then if you roast a garlic, like a bulb, it turns into this sweet spread. I'm going off on a tangent about but basically my point is that foods taste different depending on how you prepare them. So you have to be, when you're changing habits, it's really good to be open to trying new things. Okay, I'm going back to protein sources. Legumes, things like black beans. There's so many different kinds of beans. Kidney beans, white beans, navy beans, red beans, garbanzo beans, and then there's lentils. Keep in mind, although the theme of today is protein, this is just one part of the equation. There are so many important nutrients besides protein, but that build muscle. Protein is the big one people focus on when they want to build muscle that's going to keep you full longer and lose weight. But there are other ones, things such as fiber content and healthy fats. The thing with protein is that when I work with clients, most of them, when I first start working with them, they think they're getting enough and they usually aren't. So people have also in the past been scared of protein. I was just talking about this with someone because they're generally higher calories and we're all scared of calories. And I'm here to tell you, calories don't matter. Nutrients matter. Yes, you will probably gain weight if you eat 2,000 calories of junk food per day. But you'll probably lose weight if you eat 2,000 calories of nutrient-dense food per day. Just to give you a frame of reference, I Googled this because muffins can vary, and muffins are delicious. However, according to Google, the average muffin has 426 calories on average. Obviously, if you're eating a jumbo muffin, it's even more. A homemade chicken stir fry with brown rice, a bunch of delicious fresh veggies, and none of the stuff from the store-bought stuff that you can't pronounce has an average of 420 calories. If you put 4 ounces of chicken, half a cup of brown rice, some broccoli, and some other veggies, and maybe some soy sauce or something like that. So a muffin, 426, chicken stir fry, 420. They're the same amount of calories, but which one's going to keep you full longer? I'm hoping we all have the same answer to that question. And those 100-calorie snack packs are literally one of my biggest pet peeves because they're never, ever anything with protein. They're always cookies or crackers. And those things are just going to leave you hungry a half an hour later. While a protein shake or some rolled up deli meat or something like that is going to sustain you significantly longer. So I want to share a story about another client that I started working with I'd actually already been working with her for a while, and then she found out that at her last doctor appointment, they were starting to get concerned about some of her blood sugar levels trending close to the pre-diabetic range. And they wanted her to wear this like continuous glucose monitor, which she really didn't want to deal with. And they actually had her sit down and meet with a nutritionist to talk about like what sources of grains and what proteins. And she left that meeting feeling even more confused. Because her big thing is like, I already eat healthy. Her normal thing was, I have a yogurt for breakfast most days, a spinach salad for lunch, fruit for an afternoon snack, and then usually whatever her husband makes for dinner because he's the main cook in their house. Which, by the way, I'm so envious of. My husband, like, never cooks. And if he does, it's like this all-day production. Anyways. So with this client, breakfast seemed to be like the easiest one for her to make adjustments at first. So when we did that protein experiment that I've referenced a couple of times, where I help clients figure out the right amount of protein for them, she started adding some nut granola to her yogurt, or doing the egg frittatas that I've already told you I'm a super fan of. And she noticed a pretty immediate difference in her energy levels throughout the morning. And because it was just like this tiny change with a measurable and noticeable difference, she wanted more. So we looked at adding things to her salad. Like her spinach salad was healthy, but how can we add a little bit more protein in it? So we'll add like pumpkin seeds and chicken, maybe some hard-boiled egg, and then that helped. She stayed full way longer, had more energy. And the cool part for her was she found that she actually she was always like, I'm going to work out after work. But then prior to doing this, she never had the energy. So once we started doing this, she's like, I'm actually following through with my workouts after work, because she didn't feel the need to like rush home and finally eat something. So she was sold on this whole protein thing. And her late afternoon snacks now also include some sort of protein, either some nuts or a protein shake. And if she still wants some fruit, she'll have that too. She also noticed she wasn't craving these little chocolates that she always kept in her desk drawer just in case at work. But the coolest part was at her 6-month checkup, all of her numbers were back in the normal range. And absolutely nothing we did felt like she completely changed how she was eating. It was just adding and up-leveling things one at a time. And now it just feels easy and second nature to her. And she lost some weight along the way, and she told me that the biggest thing she learned was how to pay attention more to how foods make her feel. At the end of the day, it's about paying attention to your body. This is something I constantly encourage my clients to do, because we can take all of the equations I gave you or follow a specific diet recommendation, which is all outsourced information, and try and follow it to a T. But if you're not listening to your body, you will never truly know what works best for you. So while it's helpful to have that frame of reference on how much protein you may need, where I actually encourage people to start is to take stock of what you're currently getting in an average day. Because if you're currently averaging like maybe 60 grams of protein, it might be a fairly big stretch to get all the way to 100 grams of protein overnight. So first, take stock of where you are, and then choose some areas that it might be easiest to increase a little bit and start doing a little bit at a time. Maybe look at where you can start adding like 10 grams a day, do that for a week or two, and then start building from there. Snacks are often a good area of opportunity for adding more protein. How often do you feel hungry, like you've gone from just 0 to 100 in like 30 seconds, like I'm starving all of a sudden? I've obviously been there. And adding in more protein at meals will help reduce that in the first place, but also incorporating more protein at snacks can help as well. I personally love Fairlife protein shakes because they don't need to be refrigerated. They're easily, you can just grab and go for snack time, especially when I'm already in the middle of something else, which I am 80% of the time. And remember, as you're increasing your protein, pay attention to how it makes you feel and what the differences are. I always say too, what's healthy for one person might not actually be healthy for another person. And then what works for one person isn't going to work for another person. So you don't need to start eating exactly like I do, or eating like the person in the example I gave. The goal here is to find what works for you while reducing the feeling of overwhelm and information overload. So remember, take stock of what you're currently getting, increase in small amounts, and pay attention to how you feel. As I mentioned, protein isn't the only important dietary factor, but it's a way to simplify the focus to one thing rather than trying to count calories or eat perfect or restrict way too much, and generally yields really positive results. Simplifying a focus is a really great strategy for any area of life to have greater results and avoid overwhelm. So happy simplifying. And if any of the content from today really resonated, but you still feel like you could use some support, send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Kaitlin Rojo, and we can schedule a take control strategy session for you to really narrow down a plan to help you get more protein into your life and just getting your health back on track the way you'd love it. Thank you so much for being here with me today on Holistic High Achiever. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and ready to take on the world one healthy step at a time. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you're anything like me, you probably thought of someone else who would likely resonate with this, so don't forget to share it with them, because who can't use a little extra motivation? Until next time, keep embracing your journey and kicking ass.